Hi everybody, I'm Zilla Blitz and welcome. This is a video I've been wanting to make for a few months right now. In this video I'm going to rank my top Solitaire Wargames, games I have enjoyed the most. Let me explain a little bit about the format, however. I was gone from wargaming for about 25 years, and I've been back for a little bit over a year now. So this list has 7 games on it because these are the 7 really solid Solitaire Wargaming experiences I've had over the past year. However, I have another list of games that I'm going to call my contenders. So after we look at my top 7, I'm going to show you a list of my contenders, as well as a few games that are coming out in the next few months that I think might have a chance to break their way into this list. Then, what I'm hoping to do is about 6 months down the line to create another video that has a revised ranking list. Let's jump in and get started with my current top 7 Solitaire Wargaming experiences. Our first game on the list, coming in at number 7. Sherman Leader from DVG Games. Now, in this game, you take the role of an American force commander, and you're going to build up this force. Each unit is an individual Sherman tank, for example, or a different type of tank, or a half-track. You're going to have infantry squads, machine gun squads, mortar squads, and stuff like that. And you're going to play with these troops, and each one of these units has a leader attached to it. You're going to play with this group of soldiers over the course of a campaign with multiple engagements against German or Japanese forces. Tons of campaigns in the box, a lot of depth. Now let me explain why it's on my list. When I had been away from wargaming for so long, I wanted to reintroduce myself to the genre with a game that was relatively easy to learn and fast to play. I heard about this series, the Leader series, and I started with Sherman Leader, and it didn't let me down. This is a game that creates amazing narrative, so many tense scenarios, and it's just great fun to play, especially the dynamic nature of the campaign, where you're going to have a leader that's with you for like 5 battles, and then all of a sudden they get killed, and you're going to be heartbroken. You're going to have ones that make it through the whole way. The story of your force as you go through the campaign is just marvelous. Now, it's not perfect, and I talk a little bit about more about that in my full review of the game, but I give this such a strong thumbs up because the overall play experience, especially if you're looking for a gentle reintroduction to wargaming or you're looking for something that's kind of more beer and pretzel type nature wargame, this is a fantastic experience. So Sherman Leader is on our list right now at number 7. Coming in at number 6 on our list, Men of Iron Tri-Pack from GMT Games. Now, you might be saying, wait a second, that's not a solitaire game. I know, but it's an amazing solitaire wargaming experience. Now, what's the game about? Well, it's battles from basically 1100 to 1500. You've got horses and archers and knights and peasants and all kinds of fun stuff. The battles range, I'm pretty sure there's about 7,462 scenarios in this game, not including historical variants. So it is 3 games in one, right? It's a tri-pack that consists of the game Infidel, Blood and Roses, and the original Men of Iron, all in one box. So it's incredible value. If you're on a budget, you could get this game and probably play it for the rest of your life. That's how much gaming I think is in this box. Now, why is it on the list at number 6 as a solitaire experience, even though it's a 2-player game? It's a fantastic solitaire experience, especially with the initiative system that's variable and very unpredictable. You're going to constantly be forced to switch sides and rethink things as the other side, and you're never quite sure how things are going to play out, which is a really fun mechanic in a solitaire gaming experience, even though it is a 2-player game. Played this one a ton. I love coming back to it. It is by far one of my favorite all-time war games, but it earns a place at number 6 on our best solitaire war games because of how good the experience is, even though it's a 2-player game, as a solitaire wargaming experience. Big, big thumbs up. One of the best values you can get in wargaming, Men of Iron Tri-Pack from GMT Games. Number 5 on our list, maybe a game you haven't heard much about. Hill of Doves from Legion Wargames. Now, this is a dedicated solitaire wargaming, so we're back on track with solitaire wargames. It's about the first Anglo-Boer War from 1880 to 1881, and you take the role of the British commander in this battlefield. This battle happened in South Africa. It's a very short conflict that was spanned over a number of days, roughly about a month in length. And it has the neat thing about this game, it has a strategic level where you're moving troops around on that level. It has an operational level, which is very much kind of a logistics experience. And then it has a tactical level where you're trying to kind of unwind the knot of how to kind of break through the Boer forces and be able to rescue the English settlements, which then in turn is going to win you the first Anglo-Boer War. Now, I have yet to beat this game, but I love this game and it's on the list for a number of reasons. First up, it's super creative and original. You probably haven't played a war game like this before. Very well explained, easy to learn, fun to play. Now, it is somewhat of a longer game, but that's good because I think we need kind of meatier solitaire experiences. This is a game you're going to play over the course of maybe 1, 2, or perhaps even 3 nights. It takes a while to get through, probably, I'm going to say like 6 hours or so to play the whole thing, depending on your own. And it's just a fun puzzle. It's also a game that's challenging, and you're going to get through it, and you're going to be like, okay, I lost that time, but now I want to play again and try it again. I've yet to beat it. I'm going to come back to it yet again. I kind of recycle through this one now and then. Hope to beat it sometime in the next year, but for its novel mechanics, its fun, challenging intellectual play, the ability that you can play to play logistics as well, and the fact that it's strategic, operational, and tactical level, can't go wrong with this one. I think you'll be very surprised by its novel gameplay and how much fun it is to play. So, Hill of Doves comes in at number 5 from Legion Wargames. Now, if you've been following the channel, you're probably waiting for a couple games, maybe, because you've known how much, I've talked about how much I like them and that you haven't seen them yet. This is probably one of those games. Number 4 on our list, Silent Victory from GMT Games. Now, in this game, you take the role of a U.S. submarine commander over the course of World War II in the Pacific Theater. Basically, that's how it goes. Why is this game on the list? I think the whole submarine series, or Silent Victory, Beneath the Med, The Hunters, and The Hunted, this whole series is just marvelous. It spins such amazing narrative, but the thing that I think I really like about the game is that it doesn't waste your time, right? You can play a whole campaign in a single evening. I mean, sometimes you can play a whole campaign in like 5 minutes if things go badly wrong on your first mission. So there is that, and there is that element of luck. Sometimes the gods are just going to strike you down and you're going to die and your submarine is going to sink. But to a certain degree, I think that's a justifiable mechanic in a game about submarine warfare because that's kind of what happened, right? I mean, sometimes your number just came up. So I'm fine with the luck element in this. And the thing that makes this strong, however, is again that idea you can play a whole campaign over the course of an evening. The tension these missions create and that sense of elation you feel when you kind of hit like a battleship or something like that or going up against a capital ship, it's just tangible. I mean, sometimes you'll finish these and be like, wow, I am so tired. Such an exhausting experience. You're going to get invested in your submarine and in your crew and how their battles and their travails as they go through the whole thing. Marvelous experiences. Can't say more about these. I have loved my time with this game. It's a game I'm going to come back to again and again. Silent Victory from GMT Games, one of the 4 GMT games. And there's others, too, that spin off of this. And there's more coming, too, which we'll talk about a little bit later that I think we can mention. But a fantastic gaming experience. Number 4 currently on my list of top solitaire war games. Number 3 on my list. By Stealth and Sea from DVG Games, designed by David Thompson. I had a marvelous time playing this game. Now, first of all, what is this game to say? You take the role of, you're leading the Italian commando unit in a series of missions, underwater missions. These are the commandos that rode these kind of underwater torpedoes, basically is what they are. And they try to go into British harbors in World War II and blow up ships. It's a real thing. You're going to learn a ton about an element, an area of World War II, a kind of lesser known and lesser told story of World War II heroism. It's just a fantastic experience. You're going to learn so much about this whole operation. The missions that you go through are all kind of laced with history. They're just laden with all of the historical background. The actual ships are there. It's just a mind-blowing experience, both from that participating in history and kind of being in absolute awe of the heroism and bravery that these soldiers, these commandos, exhibited in doing some of these missions. As a gameplay experience, the tension's through the roof. You're going to, when you sink one of the major capital ships or you finally get an aircraft carrier or battleship, you're going to be just absolutely elated. And you're going to be devastated because there's missions where things just go sideways, right? These underwater torpedo units, they broke all the time. And stuff's going to break and you're going to be incredibly frustrated. You're going to think there's no way you can pull this mission out. And then something happens and you sink a ship and you're like, oh my gosh. And your crews, they're going to die. A lot of them are going to die. Well, at least a lot of them died for me. but you're gonna be heartbroken when your favorite crew members die. But it's just so much fun. Custom campaign by far too is the way to go with this one. By Stealth and Seed from DVG Games comes in at number 3 on my list of top solitaire wargaming experiences. Really enjoyed this one. Can't recommend it more. Number 2 on our list of top solitaire wargames, The Hunters from GMT Games. Now, we talked about Silent Victory a few minutes ago. The Hunters is one of the 4 games in that series. And this game, you take the role of a U-boat commander from 1939 to 1943, just about up to the time where things got really bleak for U-boats. If you want to experience that, there's The Hunted, which I've heard things about but haven't quite played yet. But anyway, I digress. The Hunters, again, you take the role of a U-boat commander, similar gameplay to Silent Victory. I like this one better because I feel like it's just a tighter experience, and something about the gameplay captured me more. As much as I like Silent Victory and as strongly as I recommend both of these games, it might also have been the order in which I played them, because I felt like Silent Victory had some rules kind of shoehorned into the Hunters rules that made it a little bit more challenging for me to kind of play smoothly, if you would. So I kind of put the Hunters ahead of Silent Victory, but they're very close. Really, to be honest, they're both great. I did, however, like the Hunters a touch better. And again, all the same benefits of Silent Victory. You can play an entire campaign in an evening. The tension is through the roof. Sometimes you're just going to get smushed and you're dead. And you're like, well, okay, we start over again. But I have yet to make it through a whole campaign to get to the end of the game. I do hope to I keep coming back to this one. I will keep coming back to this one to play it again. One of these days, I'm going to get a U-boat from 1939 to 1943. Can't say more about these games. The Hunters, number 2 on our list of top solitaire wargames. Here is the moment. Top solitaire wargame. Now, if you've been following the channel for the past year, you might be kind of ticking off in your head and think, I've seen everything he's put on for a series on the channel. And that's right. This one has yet to go on as a series on the channel. However, it is coming up. My top solitaire wargame so far, in over a year of being back at wargaming, DDay at Omaha Beach, designed by John Butterfield from Decision Games. This game, you take the role of U.S. forces attacking Omaha Beach in D-Day. It plays out over the course of an entire day, and your goal is to get your forces from the beaches as far inland as you can. This is such a marvelous wargaming experience. I can't say more about it. Another one of these games where you're going to play and you're going to lose badly, and then you're going to say, oh, wait, I want to play again right away because I know I can do better. The mechanics, the thought, the creativity, the depth of the solitaire system is absolutely through the roof. There's enough variety and kind of variability in there depending on how you play and how things go forward that you're going to be able to just keep coming back to this game. There's really 4 levels to it, well, 3 levels to it. There's kind of, you play half of the beach landing on up through like the first half of the day for one part of the game. Then you can play both sides up to the first half of the game. And then the game kind of morphs and evolves as you get later in the day and you go further inland to account for some of the variability in the German tactics as that game goes. So tons of depth. It's not a simple game. There is an element of complexity here, but I don't feel like I'm perfectly fine with complexity if the rules cover that complexity. I have not had a question come up in this game that I haven't been able to look into the rule book and say, oh, there it is, right there, that's the answer. And it's usually really easy to find. So even though it's somewhat complex and there's some challenges to kind of figuring out some of the intricacies of how to play, I don't think it's a game you're going to feel frustrated with in its complexity. And once you get rolling, things really pick up. It's just such a marvelous, dramatic, thrilling, fun, solitaire gaming experience. So right now, after over a year of wargaming, my number 1 top solitaire wargaming experience so far, D-Day at Omaha Beach. And I will be bringing this one to the channel. This was the winner of a recent poll on the channel about what game would people like to see. So coming soon to the channel will be D-Day at Omaha Beach. We're going to do a playthrough of the first scenario, half the beach. I think that's something we can really dig into and kind of show in great depth. So looking forward to bringing this to the channel. My number 1 top solitaire war game so far, D-Day at Omaha Beach. Now, don't go away because we're going to take a look at the Contenders. I'm excited actually about this challenge because these are games I want to start to play over the course of the next 6 months to a year. I'm going to try to work through them. We're going to take a look now at games I think have a very good chance of knocking these games farther down the list. So we're going to take a look at the contenders. Now these are in no particular order. The previous one was a ranked list, 7 through 1. Eventually what I hope to have is my top 10. That'll probably be the next video. Let's jump in and get started taking a look at the contenders. Our first contender it's a little bit tricky to place, but I think it's worth mentioning on this list because of its potential. This is the CDG Solo System. This is designed by Stuka Joe, published by GMT Games. And what it does is it creates it's for card-driven games. It creates a solo bot system that you can use with the games that are listed in this pack. So this one has 6 different games in it that you can have, and the only one that I've got so far in this is Paths of Glory. So what I hope to do sometime in the course of the next 6 months to a year is to use this system for Paths of Glory and then evaluate Paths of Glory as a solitaire wargaming experience using this system. The second version of this is coming out soon from GMT Games. The system's adaptability is incredibly diverse and deep, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this experience. This is really inexpensive too. I think it's 20 bucks now, maybe, now that it's gone past its P500 or something like that. And I think you can actually print and play it free from GMT's site. I might have that wrong. Don't hold that to me. So if you really want to test it out, you can print it out and use the system there free. But I wanted to support Stuka Joe, so I picked this up, and I'll probably keep getting them as they come out. But I want to try it with Paths of Glory. I think this has great potential to elevate some 2-player games to great solitaire games. So I want to try it, and then we're going to come back and see if Paths of Glory can inch its way into that top 10 list as we go forward. So CDG card-driven, the Solo System by Stuka Joe and GMT Games. Looking forward to giving that a try. All right, 2 more contenders. They're coming up together, and I'll talk about why as we go through them. Contenders, the next contenders here, it's 20th Air Force from Fortress Games and Save South Vietnam from Fortress Games. Now these are 2 games. The 20th Air Force, you play the 20th Air Force, which was the US Air Force in its strategic bombing campaign against Japan. Your goal is to reduce Japan and end the war through the use of strategic bombing and the 20th Air Force. Save South Vietnam, you play the US forces in South Vietnam, and it's a game that spans over 10 years of the Vietnam conflict. They use very similar systems that have been modified. They use a very similar system that's been modified for each of the 2 different conflicts. I've heard great things about the system and its gameplay. I'm just starting now to play Save South Vietnam, so I'm going to feature this one on the channel very, very soon. I think both of these games as solitaire experiences have a lot of potential to end up on this top 10 list. And one of the reasons why I really am excited about these is that I think it's fairly rare that solitaire games have such a long scope. I mean, what's a solitaire game that covers 10 years of a conflict? Save South Vietnam is literally the entire Vietnam War in a solitaire model. So I think that's pretty intriguing, I think, as a solitaire experience. Likewise, 20th Air Force, you're playing the US Air Forces as a strategic bombing campaign over a number of months at the end of World War II. So the scope and scale very large on these games. They're big games, they're longer games, they're meatier games, but I think they have a lot of potential to inch their way into that top 10 list of my favorite solitaire war games. So Save South Vietnam and 20th Air Force from Fortress Games, and Save South Vietnam coming to the channel very soon. Our next contender is an interesting story in itself. I think we could make a video on this one, and the series really, if you would, all to its own. Fields of Fire. Now this is Fields of Fire number 2, but this is a game where some people absolutely love this game. And this is a game, you'll see it's still in its shrink wrap. I've yet to play it. But this is a game, it's a small unit game. It's a tactical level combat game. World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War. It's a card-driven game with no maps, tons of interesting decisions. I've heard people say it is their absolute favorite solitaire war game. And if you don't know much about the history of this game, for everyone that said that, I've heard probably maybe 2 or 3 people that have tried to assault the Fields of Fire mountain and failed because it's one of the most daunting, what many people say, one of the most daunting learning experiences out there in wargaming today. Part of which, and I think it's fair to level this criticism at it, the way it's a complicated game and the rules don't necessarily help you learn it that well. So it requires a huge investment of time to get over the learning curve of that. Now, why is it on the list now? Well, the good news is that Fields of Fire 1 actually just, I think yesterday, hit its 500 order status on a new deluxe edition. And there's been a ton of investment of time by the crew behind this game in GMT Games to rework the learning of the system and to help teach people how to play the game. I couldn't be more excited about the Fields of Fire Deluxe Edition. I've got it on P500 order. So that game, and not this game, is going to be the one that I think could easily break into the top 10 list of Solitaire Wargames. But we got a little bit of a wait, right? It's just hit 500 orders. Sometimes that P500 system can take a while, but I'm hopeful within the next year, maybe we'll have that copy in hand, can play it, and then see if it's going to make the top 10 lists of top Solitaire Wargames. Our next contender, Hornet Leader from GMT Games. Now there's a huge range of leader games, right? We've talked about Sherman Leader, there's Panzer Leader, Zero Leader, Hornet Leader, there's the U-Boat Leader, there's a lot of different ones. Thompson from Quarter to Three forums calls this his favorite leader game. And you play a U.S. Strike Force squadron over a modern air campaign. Now, I'm really excited about this because I do really enjoy Sherman Leader, and I have high hopes for this one as being perhaps a game that could surpass the gameplay experience of Sherman Leader, and being what many people consider to be the top leader game. I'm quite excited to see if this one can earn its place as one of the top solitaire games on my list. So, looking forward to a campaign with Hornet Leader coming up some point in the next year to see if it can break into the top 10. We're going to stay in the air for a while here. Our next contender, Storm Over the Reich from GMT Games. Now, in this game, you play the role of a squadron of Focke-Wulf 190s taking on B-24 Liberators over Germany during the strategic air bombing campaign of Germany in World War II. I have learned this game and I've played the initial kind of learning scenario, and then I thought at that point in time I really wanted to bring it to channel in video format, but I felt like I didn't have the skills to do so, so I put it off to the side. I am extremely optimistic that the solitaire experience of this game is absolutely top-notch given what I've seen and what I've played so far of the game, but I haven't given a full lean-in yet to be able to say, yeah, this game deserves a spot on the top 10, my top list of top solitaire games. That should happen sometime in the next 6 months to a year. When it does, we'll see if Storm Above the Reich can make its way into that top list. Next game, staying in the air again. And it's here, this game is here for one reason, I'll be totally honest, but let's talk about it first. Enemy Coast Ahead. This is a game where you coordinate and lead the Doolittle raid on Japan in World War II. Total solitaire war game. This game is here for one reason, which goes again back to Tom Chick, who is the head of the Quarter to Three game forums. He knows more about gaming. He's forgotten more about gaming than I will ever know in my entire lifetime. He extraordinarily praises this game, which immediately brought it to my attention. But that's all I know about it. I haven't heard many people who've played it. I don't know that much about it other than his recommendation and what I've kind of read on the back of the box. Very much looking forward to playing it because of that recommendation and curious to see if this experience can get this game into the top solitaire wargaming list. So Enemy Coast Ahead from GMT Games, another one of our contenders that we hope to look at over the course of the next year. Still in the air. Target for today from Legion Wargames. In this game, you play a campaign with an individual plane. It's either a B-17 or a B-24, bombing targets over Europe in World War II. You have crew members, and you're going to have different types of encounters as you go on these bombing missions over the course of an entire campaign. So it's very detailed, integrate a lot of different charts and card lookup, but every time I've mentioned which games would people like me to see me play on the channel, people bring this one up as one of their favorite solitaire wargaming experiences. So I feel like it definitely deserves a list in our contender list. Hope to get to play it in the next 6 months to a year and to see if it's going to break into that top 10. 2 more to go for games that I currently have, so hang in there. The next one, really I could put 2 games in here, but right now I'm just going to put 1. Enemy Action Ardennes. Now, of course, there's its sister games, Enemy Action Kharkov, which is a different battle using that same, a modified but similar system. Very hopeful for this one. Why? Well, it's a John Butterfield game. It's a John Butterfield solitaire game. I've heard a number of people say this is their absolute favorite solitaire wargaming experience. It's got literally perhaps the most evolved AI bot and artificial intelligence to run your opposing forces. Brilliant design. Everything I've played by John Butterfield, I absolutely adore. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is a #1 contender, right? If this is like, when it's all said and done, and after played through all of these games, that this game, or Enemy Action Kharkov, sits at number 1 on the list. I have that much confidence in this game's ability and this system's ability, perhaps, to take on that spot. So coming up at some point, I want to play Enemy Action Ardennes and see where it falls on our list of top solitaire war games. I feel like a list of contenders wouldn't be complete with this next game, because this is another one of those games where when I ask what people their favorite solitaire war games are, this one comes up quite a bit. RAF, The Battle of Britain, 1940, from Decision Games. Now, this is a 3-player game, really, in one. It's a 2-player game, but you can also play the Luftwaffe in the bombing campaign over England in World War II, or you can play the RAF, the Royal Air Force, in its defense of England, the Battle of Britain, in World War II. I've heard so many people say this is such a marvelous single-player solitaire game experience. The scope and scale, again, a big scope and scale, kind of like Save South Vietnam or the 20th Air Force. You got a big scope and scale here, a lot of decisions, and great narrative storytelling, lots of interesting decisions to make. Very hopeful that when I get this one out of the box and to the table, that it's going to end up on our list. So we've looked at my top 7 games right now. We've looked at the current list of upcoming contenders, but I want to take a moment before we wrap up to talk a little bit about some upcoming games that I think could be contenders for this list as well. First one, Lanzerath Ridge from DVG Games, designed by David Thompson. Now, this is really, I think, considered to be the 4th game in a series that has Castle Itter, Pavlov's House, and then Soldiers in Postmen's Uniforms. I haven't played those 3. I'm going to start with Lanzerath Ridge, which is the 4th game in the series. I've seen a demo of this game played. Very excited about its gameplay. Very excited to check out this series of games. I suspect that perhaps any of those 4 games in the series would be considered candidates for the top list. But I'm very curious to start with Lanzerath Ridge, see if it makes it onto the top list of solitaire war games. So that's one game coming up soon that I'm very excited about. Honestly, I think we could probably make a whole video just on upcoming solitaire war games that I think could end up as contenders on this list, but let's keep going and mention just a few more. 2 I want to put together. Western Front Ace by Compass Games, and then Aces of Valor by Legion Wargames. Both of these are World War I flying games, and we really need a World War I flying solitaire war game. There's not really much out there right now, so I've got high hopes of both of these games. Now, Western Front Ace from Compass Games is designed in part by Gregory Smith. He's one of the 2 designers working on the game. Of course, the Hunters, you get, Silent Victory, you get the idea. So I've got kind of particular eye on this one. And that one, I think you play an individual fighter pilot over the course of World War I. Aces of Valor by Legion Wargames is a little bit different. I think you command a whole squadron of pilots through World War I, but similar ideas, similar solitaire concept. Very much excited about the potential of both of these games to see if perhaps we've got a gem in one or 2, or maybe even both of these games. Connected to Western Front Ace, I feel like we have to mention this one too, is American Tank Ace. This is a game that I think is scheduled to come out later this year or early 2023, designed as well by Gregory M. Smith, based off of the principle of kind of the Hunters in Silent Victory. This one you lead an American tank commander through a series of missions and a whole campaign in the Western Front in World War II. So you get, similar now to the Hunters and stuff like that, where you're leading a submarine, now you're leading a tank, you've got a crew, you've got awards and medals and all these kinds of things. So I'm very interested to see how this system would evolve. I mean, one of the questions I have is it going to kind of start to feel like same, where we're playing a submarine as a tank? There are going to be enough differences and nuances in there to make it really interesting, but very curious about this one. A lot of confidence in Gregory Smith to pull off the design for these that will make them different enough that they feel like their own things and be another whole category of amazing solitaire games that can make it into our top games list. Last but not least, I want to mention Silent War IGN Deluxe Edition coming out from Compass Games either later this year or early next year. And in this game, you manage the entire U.S. submarine theater in World War II against Japan. Sounds like an amazing experience, broad depth. Again, one of these larger scale solitaire experiences that I think we can use more of. I've heard great things about the original version. I have the Deluxe Edition, which includes like the IJN expansion on it that gives you a lot more depth and variety in the Japanese forces as you're fighting against them. Very high hopes for this one. I've heard great things about the original version. I think it could well be one of the games that makes it onto the top solitaire war games list. So there you have it. We've covered a lot of ground. We've got my top 7 solitaire war games list. We talked about 10 existing contenders and then 5 more potential contenders that are upcoming in the next few months to a year. Let me know, what do you think? What did I miss? Where am I crazy? Where am I totally wrong? Where do you agree with me? I'd love to hear down in your comments about games either that you think I should check that aren't here, or hear your opinions about what we've talked about today. Now, what's next? I'm hoping 6 months later, because I feel like I need some time to play through some of these games. Maybe 3 months, optimistically, but 6 months later, I want to create version 2, so kind of top Solitaire Wargames, the updated version, that's going to re-rank the top games. Ideally, I want to get it to a top 10 list, so there'll be 10 war games there, and then kind of keep doing this iteratively over the course of every maybe 4, 5, 6 months to regenerate the list and generate another video with an updated list and ranking of games. Now, I do also want to reserve the right to shift the existing list. So like right now, DDay at Omaha Beach is over the Hunters. But maybe after I play DDay at Omaha Beach another 2 or 3 times, maybe that shifts, and maybe I pull something else around. Maybe I play Silent Victory a little bit more and I bump it up the list ahead of By Stealth and Sea, or something like that. So this is not fixed in stone, and as you play games more in a number of times, they could shift around. And I'm constantly revisiting a lot of these games, so I do reserve the right to change things up. This is not a final ranking by any means. Love to hear what you think down below in the comments. If you have enjoyed this one, I would guide you to our series, Let's Play with the Hunters, where we go through a whole campaign with one U-boat in World War II. I think that's a fun series to check out. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching. We'll see you in an upcoming video soon.